Last week at Explore, we spent a bit of time looking at the arrival of this person, Jesus. So we looked at this promise that Isaiah had made in the Old Testament. And then we just looked at the very beginning, only very briefly, of Matthew's story about Jesus. And now we're going to think about how this person, Jesus, starts to fulfill some of those promises that we've been looking at in the whole Bible story. So I hope you've had a chance to just look at Luke chapter 6 and a few verses from there, from some of Jesus' teaching. Now, when Jesus arrives in the Bible story, it feels quite exciting. You sort of go through his life, and it's like we see the first real signs of these curses being reversed. Stuff is being turned back down. It seems wherever he goes, things are changing in a way that we haven't really seen before in the rest of the Bible story. It seems like this person is bringing blessing where there was once curse. Now, there are lots of different bits in the New Testament and that you could look at to find about the life of Jesus. So you've got 4 stories, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, that were all written as accounts of this person's life. And I would encourage you to have a little read of at least one of them. I think they're amazing books. But one of the things that you very quickly notice about Jesus is his teaching. So the teaching that Jesus taught was amazing. People would come to him and they'd be like, this man has amazing authority. He speaks in a way that I've not really understood before. He sees the world in a way that is clearer and more real than we really know. He seems to turn things upside down the way that we maybe have seen them before. His teaching is amazing, it's pure, it's revolutionary, and it's deep and it's terrifying. So just the passage we looked at now has some of his most, I guess, famous words that he ever taught. He says, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. And when I was young, I used to love going swimming. And I loved playing in the swimming pool with my brothers and messing around. But one thing I didn't like, especially when I was small, was the deeper end of the pool. So sometimes you'd dip your head underwater and I'd have my goggles on so I could see. And you'd look down and the deep end looks dark and terrifying and like a scary place. I liked the shallow water. I hated the darkness of the deep water. And it's similar with something like the ocean. Like, it's fun playing near the shore, but if you imagine that you're out in the middle of the sea and just the darkness and the depth that is underneath you, it's quite terrifying. It's too big, it's too deep, it's too scary for us to really get our heads round. And when Jesus approaches this subject of love, we know a lot about love. Humans love the idea of love. We write poems, we write songs, there's art dedicated to love. We know that we want it, love. We want to love people, we want other people to love us. But here's the thing, when Jesus talks about love, it's like he shows us all the things that we don't really know about it. It's a bit like he says, you've been playing in the shallow water, and I want to show you the deep end, the real depths of love. And when he explains it, this thing that we like, this idea of love and all that it is, can become much bigger and scarier, possibly, than we have thought. We like the idea of playing in the shallows, but really only thinking about love a little bit. But Jesus shows us the depth of it. So he says, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. And just think how big that is. So he's saying love, real love, involves not just doing good to those who do good to you, and being lovely to nice people, to people who love us, who are friendly, who are our family. He says real love is to those who hate us, who don't really like us. To do good to those who will do good back, that's easy love. That's shallow. It's fun, but Jesus says there's a deeper love. He says you want to know deeper love, love those who it's hard to love. So think about it. It's much easier to be lovely and nice to a housemate who is nice to you, who speaks to you, who's friendly. But imagine if you had a flatmate or a housemate or a course mate who never spoke to you. In fact, you find out they're taking some of your food from your fridge. They don't even care about it. They've made racist jokes towards you that you didn't find funny. Now that housemate's much easier to ignore. It's much easier not to be nice to them because they're not being very nice to you. But Jesus says deep love is to love that person. To be nice to them even though they're not nice to you. To love your enemies. Now that's, I'm not here saying that's really easy. I think that's really hard to do. I think it's incredibly hard to do. But we're going to pause for a second now and we're going to discuss this one question. Is this good? Is it good to love like Jesus loves here? So we'll pause and you can discuss this now. So welcome back. Now that is a really difficult question to think about, isn't it? I think it is a really hard thing to do, but I do think it is a good thing to do, to love your enemy. Now we notice something else though as we move through Jesus' teaching. He says this, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. He just says it right at the end. So when we see Jesus talking about love, we think what you've said is impossible. It's not possible for me to live like this in the world. But then we notice something. Jesus sort of says at the end, be merciful as your Father is merciful. He's saying that his Father, that is God, is merciful to people. He shows love to people in this way. And last week we saw that Jesus is God with us. He's God come to earth. And in Jesus we see this love. So if you read through the story yourself, you see him eating with those who are broken and despised and helping those who are ungrateful. He offers help and shows kindness to those who have done bad, who have done evil things. Not because they deserve it, but because he shows mercy to them. He's loving his enemies. He's loving the unlovely. Now, I don't know what you think about that, but I think it's amazing news. A God who shows kindness to broken people. This is good news for the world. Here's a God who wants to show kindness and love, who wants to show mercy to a broken world and broken people. It's actually something we've seen God do throughout the whole story as we've been following it. Here is a God who wants to show kindness to a broken people, who wants to love his enemies. And as we move through the rest of the story of Jesus' life, we'll actually see what it really cost him to love his enemies. What it took for him to really love those who didn't want to do good things to him. But what I would say is this. With this person, Jesus, he promises to be someone who won't just show you what love is, but he can change you and change your hearts to begin loving in this way. It's like he's a swimming teacher who takes us from the shallow end and says, look, I will show you what it's like to swim in the depths of the ocean. I'll show you what it is to have deep love, to love the unlovely, those who hate you and despise you, to those who are not like you. Jesus says he can give us a heart that wants to learn to love like this. Now, I think that's amazing, and we're going to see more of this as the story unfolds. It's powerful teaching that Jesus makes. It's teaching that can transform a world. Now, with this in mind, with these big teaching, we've had a little bit of time to discuss in the middle. It's back over to you to talk about this subject further. So over to you. Thanks.